Hello lovelies, how are you all doing today? I hope you're well. I'm properly wrapped up again today. It's definitely a 2 hoodie and thermals day. Yeah, it's quite chilly, but it's dry, so I'm going to carry on getting on with things out in the garden. But I thought, and there's a little bit of wind. I hope it's not going to be an issue. It's due to get really quite stormy later on. Has the storm arrived early? I'm not sure. Anyway, what I thought I'd do with you today, I'm going to get on with some work, but first of all I thought, let me just show you the state of the garden. It's right at the end of March for me, so when you think of it, it's like, this is almost like the beginning of April. It's been neglected all winter just because of 6 months of rain. So let's see where it's at right now and talk about some of the jobs that are going to need to be done, and let's get a move on. Although I have to say, obviously compared with this time last year when I just moved in, I've got a head start this year. Anyway, let's chat, let's have a look. Well, obviously this end of the garden hasn't changed at all, and this is where a lot of work needs to happen. This is actually what I was planning to tackle last September and October, but I couldn't because of the rain. So this anemone here, and here's the old stalks. I left them on purpose to sort of just mark the spot. Like I say, it's a Japanese anemone, which I'm not a massive fan of, but these ones are white, so I thought, you know what, they can stay. Yeah, the white is rather pretty down in this shady area. But then, jobs to do are, this is what the chainsaw is for. Get this, it's far too big, far too close to the wall, it has to go. Clear a lot of, I mean, there's rubbish in here, there's bits of old scaff, bits of goodness knows what. But yeah, so most of this needs to be cleared. Get rid of quite a lot of the crocosmia. I'm going to keep some crocosmia up here, but yeah, get all of this windy cleared out. This bramble, oh, that needs to go, and there's another one up here. That needs to go. There's a couple of weeds that need to go. Oh, there's another bramble in a crack there. A couple of weeds that need to go, but I'm going to try to keep the heart's tongue ferns. There's one there and another. They look a bit tatty by now. Oh my goodness, and there's rubbish down there. That rubbish is blown in. Look, blooming plastic pot. That's not one of mine. Yes, so I'm going to try and keep those. I had all sorts of rubbish stacked up here, and I have, that is one thing over the winter that I've managed to do. Oops, sorry, going backwards down the steps, is to get that cleared. That door still needs to go. These bits and bobs. Against the wall it's fairly tidy. Roof tiles, they'll get smashed up and put in the bottom of pots, possibly, but there's been other rubbish here that I have managed to clear. Then, after the compost bin, so we can see where the bluebells have come back. I'll show you in the next bed about getting them out. I knew that I wouldn't get all of them out. It was nigh on impossible to eradicate them completely, but I did quite well. So now that I can see where they've come up, I'll be digging them out, and if I can't get to them for some reason, that'll make more sense in the veg bed, I will simply remove their flower stalks so at least they can't seed. That's the Taunton Dean that went in the tail end of last year. That's absolutely fine. It might need a bit of a stake, a bit of support. So this is one of the jobs to get on with. I don't know how much it'll pick up on camera, but all of this jasmine, masses of it, it really needs cutting back. Really, it was a job to do, well, a bit earlier. I mean, it's up and through the tree and the other side, so this all needs quite a hefty pruning. Loads of bluebells under here, but I didn't actually plant anything last year under here, so I wasn't going through the soil as carefully as in the other parts of the garden where I was actually planting. But yeah, I'll get some of those out. And like I said, I've actually already done a bit this morning. I've just snapped the flower stalks off so they can't make any more seed. So lots of work to do in this end. Now coming into the part of the garden that did get attended to last year. Yay! So the brassicas over the winter I've been using, but you can see they're now coming into flower. Lovely flowers. I'll actually leave them because it's great. It's a great bit of early food for the bees, and in fact my neighbour's shrub, I don't know what it's called, but the bees have been loving that. So yeah, the brassicas they're coming into flower. They can stay in. What happens when it starts to go to flower, the leaves become bitter. So even though, yeah, there are leaves here that I could have off, you can see where they've all been had off. On the days when I did get out here, that one had quite a lot more off. Yeah, they'll have start to sort of go bitter now. This kale though, this kale has been brilliant. Again, you can see how well it's been harvested over the winter, and it's not showing signs of flowering. Oh, it is sprouting, but I'll have those sprouts out and I'll eat them. Lovely. The other little kales that our lovely Paul gave me, they just didn't do anything. They did not. I don't know why. I don't know why they weren't happy, but they weren't, and they haven't grown. And all they're doing now is going to flower. But again, really pretty. The chard has kept going all winter. That's been great. Little clump there, and a little clump through here. That's been brilliant. So this bed is, you can see it's garlic. This is the sort of just regular supermarket garlic. If I show you quickly and then I'll come back to this bed, the difference between this bed and that bed, weeding. So this bed has been weeded. I could just get around the plants a bit more easily than with the broad beans. I'll show you the broad beans in a sec. So yes, bluebells came up. So what I did, actually I'll move next door to demonstrate in this bed. When digging up the bluebells, see, actually there was a big clump here that I had out. I could get to them because there were no broad beans. But you can see this clump, it's right next to broad beans, and you have to dig really quite deeply to get the bluebells out. So what I did in the other bed was, where I've got the smaller annual weeds just on the surface of the soil, I got rid of all the small annual weeds first of all, because then when I'm digging to get the bluebells out and I'm turning the soil over, I don't want to turn all the other little weeds in. I want them all out. Now, in this bed, it's going to be nigh on impossible to tackle the bluebells that have reappeared because of the broad beans. So, you know, there's a clump there, there's some at the back, there's a little clump in there somewhere. There's odd ones throughout. So what I'll have to do, and then at the far end, I'm going to have to just leave the bluebells in for now until I get my broad beans out. Leave them in, just keep nipping off the heads so they don't set seed, and then once the broad beans have come out, I can have a really good thorough go at this bed again. But you can see, look, these are sort of annuals, all these, these can come out. I'll have to move the bags here out of the way to reach. So, speaking of the broad beans, I don't know how much it'll pick up on camera, but they're all, so this plant, it starts here, and this is the plant. What happened was, because it was quite a mild winter, they grew too quickly and they flopped over. So they've grown sort of along the ground and they firmed up, and now they're growing upright. That one's sprouting. But loads and loads of flowers. Tons of flowers. So there should be a harvest. These ones are so pretty. They're such pretty little flowers. Tons of flowers coming on there. So I'm happy that it looks like I will get a harvest, and I will just have to, in the meantime, cope with, not get upset by such a messy bed. Gosh, it is messy. Like I said, I can get a lot of the little top weeds out without disturbing the crop. The bluebells will have to wait. Again, tons of chard in this bed. It's such a great veg. It keeps going all through winter. This plant, this shrub, the Abelia, originally I wasn't going to keep. It's a bit in the way. I am going to prune this one off. But last year, seeing how the hummingbird hawk moths went absolutely nuts for the flowers, I decided I would keep it. It all needs a bit of pruning. We may struggle with this wind. Yeah, you can see it's all needing a good pruning. So that's one of the pruning jobs. I've got a list of pruning. So the jasmine, I mean, it's this is all jasmine, and it's supposed to be down there. So prune the jasmine, prune the Abelia, not just that big one out the side, but all these sort of, I don't know, sort of dead ends. Also to prune is the verbena. Hang on, I need to move something out of the way of my feet so I don't go flying. The verbena bonariensis. I always leave, can you make out the seed heads? I always leave them, seed heads. Finches love them. So leave them all winter. I would normally have tidied this up probably around January, but yeah, rain. So you can see all the new shoots that are coming. So that can have quite a good hard prune of all the dead stuff out of it. That'll get that tidied up. Oops, watch where you're standing. These are the Isle of Wight garlic, and they are, I mean, you can see they are considerably chunkier compared with, in fact I can give you an example because I've got one Isle of Wight in here. This was just ordinary supermarket garlic. Small. I hope they'll be flavoursome and mighty. I might have damaged some of them trying to get the bluebells out, but they're so tiddly I thought, well, I don't care, let's get rid of the bluebells. So that's a supermarket one, and that behind is this one. Let me come this side. So that's the Isle of Wight one, and this is the supermarket, and you can see it's easily double the thickness. So I really hope that this lot are going to do me proud. I put some of the foxgloves in the front garden, and this is the ones I've got left over. So I've got 3, 6, 9, 10, 11. Oh, good, an odd number. I've got 11 there. Yeah, they look a little bit tatty after the winter, but they are, you can see, I mean, they're healthy and sprouting. For the shade garden. Also for the shade garden, and this is coming back, this is another thing I need to get on with, is where I've got all my pots around the garden. Little annual weeds will have dropped in, a little bit of grass there. Let's just have that out a second. I'll put it on there so I don't lose it. That's a hosta, so that is for the shade garden. This came from Paul. I think he bought it at his allotment table sale. Thornless blackberry, still not quite sure where it's going to go, and a thyme that's looking a little bit worse for wear. Oh, thinking of the thyme, let me just show you the marjoram that's in the wall, because I think the thyme might go next to it. So over here, in the top of the wall, is the marjoram. I think it's quite established now. So again, you can see a little bit of pruning to do, a little bit of dead material. But I'm thinking maybe the thyme can go in here. This will need weeding. Oh my goodness, look how the weeds have just encroached. Oh my giddy goodness. That on the other side of the wall, right at the top of the wall, that's a valerian. But yeah, ivy is coming back. It all needs a good tackling. And then back to where we were. So another really important job, I need to clean the bird bath. Let me show you how I'm going to do that. And I've got a little copper disc for it, so that needs a good scrubbing out and refreshing. That pot contains one of the agapanthus. The other two have gone out the front. This is flower seeds. It's looking a bit dry on top. We'll do some rain later, so I'm not watering. The peppermint. Oopla. Oh, and the weed. This is what I mean about. It's the time to go through all my pots and weed them. But yeah, the main plant, you can see, I'll cut all of that out. That sort of died a death, but all of this is new peppermint sprouting. You can see from that, I hope, just how it can spread so easily if you don't have it in a pot. If that was in the garden bed, all of this, it'd be shooting all over your garden. Pots to empty, so all the geraniums didn't make it. Well, one did, I'll show you. I'm not surprised. I was going to take cuttings, didn't get round to it just because, like I said, the weather turned and it stayed turned. But this is the little supermarket rose, and I thought it had completely died over the winter, but look, it's coming back. Fantastic. The other geranium is over here in, oopla, can we go up there? Yeah, in the hanging basket, and it actually survived. So again, it just all needs a bit of pruning, tidying up. I think, yeah, because I can see this from my window, there's a weed in there that can come out. Oh, and also this climbing rose that was a tiny cutting, maybe about a foot high, from Richard and Paul's garden. Look, it's doing brilliantly. So that all needs tying in. I think that's what I'm going to have, is a session of pruning, weeding, tying in, just getting everything back to basics, sort of basically maintained, as it were. Those pots I already did take weeds out of. There's more around here. They'll have their weeds removed. They'll need a bit of a top up of compost, and I can start to think about seeding. Now, talking of weeds taking over, I mean, my goodness, it's yeah, nature is reclaiming. Now, a quick word on all of this, because you can see it's all down the steps and all that mind your own business, and moss at the top. I'll explain why the moss has got what looks like white powder on it. I love a little bit of nature. Of course I do. I love a little bit of wildness and self-seeding and... oh, hang on a tick. Sorry, it was all suddenly getting a bit gusty. Yeah, as I was saying, I do like a little bit of wildness. I like a little bit of the, you know, like the valerian in the wall, that sort of thing, and the ivy-leaved toad flax, which is that little clump there, is coming back. It's gorgeous. I like a little bit, but this is too much, and it's too much because when it's wet, it's really, really slippy underfoot. Actually, that herb Robert is really getting quite big, so it's slippy, but also it's trippy. So I really need to, with steps in the patio, I really need to get rid of all of this. Like I said, I can have a little bit on the walls, fine, but not on steps and patio, because combination of slippy and trip hazards. So I have started, oh my goodness, I've been working so hard on the patio. I didn't actually get this I'm climbing over things. I didn't manage to get this far last year when I was clearing the patio. Let me come this way, hang on. Start at the beginning. I haven't done this area yet. You can see grass between all the pavers, moss. I did clear the bottom step the other day. That was full of mind your own business, but yeah. So last year, when I was clearing the patio, I concentrated on this, and sort of from the end of the table, shed and steps, I just didn't ever get round to. So that's what I'm doing this year. So far, like I said, this about here back to the house I haven't done, but from here on I have. And I mean, you can see there's great huge cracks and divots, and I don't think it comes across on camera just how even things are, but it's just, look, I mean, it's just trip hazard after trip hazard after trip hazard. And this is what I came up with, you know, my genius plan, my genius idea of the rubble that got removed from the shed. There's a lot of sand in there, so if I riddle the rubble and get the sort of sand, and there's some mortar in there to fill these cracks, so the cracks are filled with sand and mortar rather than soil and weeds. I mean, you can't really see, but you know, these are deep cracks. You know, they're like, some of them are a couple of inches, and then places like this where you see that's sheared off, and then if I'm walking, if my toe's here, then bam, hits into that one, send me flying. So that's where I got to sort of last year, except it's more thorough this year because I'm doing it while it's wet, so I'm really pulling all the roots out. And I've continued, and this is the bit I hadn't got to last year. So all around this, it's not quite properly a step, it's an old lintel to get into the shed. I need to make a proper step. But this whole area, now I adore moss. I absolutely love moss. That's all moss. And I would really, really rather not get rid of it. However, like I said, when it's wet, it's so slick, and that's just an accident waiting to happen. So I read online somewhere that a bit of bicarbonate of soda sprinkled on will kill it off. And like I said, yeah, I mean, I really hate killing anything, but I also, if I slipped there just before the steps, I could go face first down the steps, arms out, break both my wrists again. I would rather kill a bit of moss than be an expense on the NHS, and more than that, not be able to work. And if I can't work, then I can't put food on the table. So I'm pleased with how far I've got. I'm so proud of myself for sticking at this job, because it is a horror to do. And one day I'll have a smooth patio and I won't be doing this anymore. Other jobs, all of this needs bashing down and getting rid of. The pyrocanth, I'm going to get it chopped up a bit smaller and offer it to one of my neighbours who's got they've got an open fire, so they burn, well, actually my neighbours next door, they have an open fire, so I'll offer it to them as fuel. Boy, oh boy, I've got my work cut out, haven't I? I mean, it's a small garden, but there's a lot to do, so all of this sort of clean-up, get back to a sort of basic level of maintenance, etc., and then start thinking about sowing seeds for another garden, for tomatoes, for my neighbours. Oh, look at that little pop of yellow over there. Isn't that lovely? I'm not a fan of yellow, as you know, but isn't that a lovely little pop of colour underneath that? What did a friend from Australia or New Zealand say? It's an Australian cabbage tree? Yeah, lots to get on with, lots to think about. It's not all going to happen in a day. I think what I'll concentrate on is the area of the garden up to the compost bin, the bit that I got. I started to clear this garden in May last year. It took me the whole of May to get sort of this far. and I'll concentrate on getting it back to that standard again, and then as we progress through May, June, I can start to think about clearing the shade garden end, and not forgetting to take plenty of time out to just enjoy the view. Yay! And that's it. That's what I'm starting with at the beginning of April 2026. Thank you so much for joining me out in the garden today. I hope you were wrapped up. I hope, if nothing else, like I hope with any of my videos, I hope that's sort of inspiring you to get up and get on with your outside spaces. We are just at the beginning of a new growing year. It always feels so exciting, full of possibilities, but ultimately we've got to put the work in. You can't have a gorgeous garden without putting a bit of work in. So all of us, deep breath, gird ourselves and get stuck into another gardening year. I'll see you in the next one for some of the work. Until then, please look after yourselves and get out there whenever you can. Days like today, it is really quite chilly. Wrap up, just enjoy that feeling of the air, the sound of the gulls or whatever birds you have in your garden. Embrace it all. Until the next one, cheerio. They're all partnering up.